Next, we're going to be joined by the artist Amy Ferguson. Amy's work holds its roots as a detailed pencil drawing first, then is done in pen and ink, as well as an entire plate etching. Pieces are finished with digital color, watercolor, or hand embellishment. At this time, I will bring up Amy's, there she is. Hi, Amy. There we go.
Unmuted.
Yes, you have been unmuted.
Hey.
So I will go ahead and hide myself and mute myself, and you can go ahead and take over.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Amy Ferguson. I'm coming at you from Royal Oak, Michigan, from my apartment, which is where I live. And this is my second bedroom, which is also my studio. If I look up, it's because I have a little script above me on my computer. I'm on my laptop, so I can move you around later for the studio. Also, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I do have the laundry room right above me. So if you hear some like faint noise, it's the laundry room. Anyway, can you hear me? Is everything working? Just wanted to check before I really start.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. It's showing me like your screen. Okay, well, whatever. Anyway, so yes, this is my bedroom studio. This is where I do all of my drawing, printing, packaging, framing, all sorts of stuff. Hello, mom and dad, I see you down there. And this is where my mom comes over and we set up an extra table, and then she helps me package and everything. I also have a printmaking studio where I do my etching, where I acid etch the plates and where I pull prints, but sadly that's at my parents' house in their basement, so I'm social distancing from them, so I can't show you guys that, which would have been pretty cool, but trust me, I still have other cool stuff here. So if you don't know me or if you haven't seen me at a show before, I consider myself an illustrator. I started doing shows about 4.5 years ago. That's what I wrote in my thing, 4.5. 4.5 years ago. This would have been my 5th summer doing shows. And I love doing shows. Shows are so fun. I started doing shows while I was still at school. I did like mainly holiday craft shows at like middle schools and stuff just to get started. And I started with just selling cards, which was like Christmas cards. And so anyway, I went to school in Detroit at the College for Creative Studies. And there I learned a lot of different processes, which you'll see is included. Like I couldn't give any of them up. They're all included in my work still, because I do drawing, pen and ink, pencil, I do the printmaking, I do digital work, which I'll be trying hopefully successfully to share my screen in a little bit. And you'll be able to see kind of how I use Photoshop, which usually in my booth, I'm like, yeah, I color with Photoshop. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like, no, because people think Photoshop is just for photos, but it's actually not. You can do cool painting with it too. Oh, here is my little information sheet. So the stuff I'm going to show you, I have a website, which is probably the easiest way to get to my Etsy store, which is where you can buy anything you see here. It's really updated right now. Everything's up to date. Everything, almost everything's 15% off, except for ornaments because they're already at a good price. Sorry about that. And everything's free shipping also. So if you go to my website, there's like the shop. If you click the word shop on my website, it takes you automatically to Etsy, because sometimes it's hard. You're supposed to, on Etsy, you have to like actually type in the name of the shop to find me. And it's like, sometimes it's a little bit tricky on Etsy. I also have Instagram. That's the best way to see kind of like my process. I will post like during the whole process of making a drawing, start to finish. And I usually try to write like pretty big captions, which are kind of long, but if you're actually interested, it's pretty nice. So I'll hold this up again at the end so you can kind of get there. And so let's see what I'm doing next. All right, so let's start with showing you some of my products before I show you around the studio. So everything starts that I make as a drawing. So as a pencil drawing or a pen and ink drawing. I also have some photos. I'm going to try and share the screen to show you some clearer photos because my pieces are really detailed and I'm afraid it's not going to officially show up super well. So I'm going to try that in a little bit. Here's an original ink drawing. And then so I'll show you in a little bit, but basically what I do is I make the drawings traditionally from pen and ink or as the pencil drawing. Here's my newest pencil drawing. It's really big. Well, this is big for me in pencil. I've kind of started to do more pencil work recently because I found that when you just use pen and ink, I miss shading. Like I can shade with pen, but it's more of like cross hatching. So I missed the actual I call it fuzzy look to the pencil that you can't really do with the ink. So I've kind of switched back over to doing pencil drawings. And then I scan those into Photoshop and I actually color them. So like here's that original peony drawing and here's the peony card that I have for sale in my card pack. And so that is the colored version. And so I sell lots of cards. So cards was like how I started. So here's my flower pack. The flower pack comes with 4 cards, all different flowers. These are all on Etsy. And the packs all come with really fun envelopes too. And I have lots of different kinds. And so they all start as those black and white drawings. I have houses. Houses are cool. Here's a house. Here's the original house for this house. So here's the, so this was scanned and then this was colored. The houses were really fun. I love drawing houses. Actually, I will draw your house for you. I do house commissions now. So on my website, there's a form you can fill out and I can draw your house because that's how much I like to do them. Here's some more card packs. I have Christmas cards. I have winged creatures. I had to take everything out of its plastic because I realized the plastic did not show up well on the video. So here's all of my wing cards. Card packs online are $22, but they're on sale 15% off. So those are cards. And then I also sell, oh, here I am reaching, lots of different prints. So here are some digital prints. And I'll switch over to the screen sharing in a minute so that you can see these better. These are 8 by 10, lots of different ones. And then here's an example of some of my etching prints, which are also 8 by 10. See, my work is so tiny. It's like, you have to, I don't know if you're even seeing enough of the detail. So here's that. And then I sell, most of the digital prints come in 3 sizes. Here's the 11 by 14 size. And then I have a bigger size, the 16 by 20 also. So you can pick whatever size you want of print online. And from here, I'm gonna screen share to show you some photos that I hope will turn up a bit clearer. It should have switched by now, hopefully. Okay, here's some pictures of my actual printmaking studio. Here's my first printing press that I don't use anymore because it's kind of too small, but as a starter press, it was really nice. Here's my newest press that I really wish I could show you. This one's pretty big. It weighs about 350 pounds. So that was fun to get into my parents' basement. We had to drive the car down around to the basement door and bring it in from there. It took like 4 people or 5 people. I had to get my boyfriend to help me with all of his friends. This is what my booth normally looks like. There's my mom. Hi, Mom. Sadly, that won't be up for a while. So here's hopefully some really good pictures of my work. Here's Puff the Magic Dragon. Hold on. Okay. Here is my piece called Wolf Princes. And all of these, so these 2 both started as etchings first and then were scanned into Photoshop. Here is a detailed version of one of my Christmas cards. Here is my piece called The White Bear King. There's like questions being asked. Hold on. Oh, thank you. Thank you. So here's that. This piece is probably my most popular piece, or at least one of my most popular pieces. And I hope the detail is coming through because since my pieces are finished digitally, like the fact that we're doing a virtual art fair is kind of nice because you can see these things really as detailed as they actually are when they're printed. But when I'm showing you like up on the screen, it's not necessarily as detailed. These are my herb cards. I like to take a picture of all of them together because it looks kind of like an herb patch. This piece is called Ride to the Castle. These are all based on, all of my work is inspired by books mostly, and animals, fantasy. I'm very inspired by ornamentation design as well, and like arts and crafts movement wallpaper, like sort of like old children's book illustrations. I'm sure you can tell. My most asked question in my booth is normally like, are you a book illustrator? And the answer is no, not technically, because these are all from books, but I'm not being paid to illustrate a book specifically. I'm just reading a book and then, oh, I like that scene that they're describing, and then that's what I choose to draw. This piece, this is my personal favorite piece. It's called Morgaine of the Fairies, and this is based on the book called The Mists of Avalon. If you've ever read that book, it's great. This is my piece called Mermaid Moon. This piece started as an etching, and this was the first etching I was able to do after I graduated from CCS, which was kind of a big achievement for me because once you leave school, you leave all of the supplies behind and you no longer have access to like the printmaking studio, which has, thousands of dollars worth of equipment and just like proper ventilation and everything. And so I've been able to gather all of the materials I need, but this was the first time I was able to do it by myself in the garage, like successfully. So, and this is the digitally colored version. This is another really a piece of mine that's really popular. This one's based on the Chronicles of Narnia, which I feel like a lot of people really enjoy. This piece is, I'm also inspired by my customers. So I listen to what people request because I'll be in my booth and someone will ask, oh, do you have fairies? And I'm like, yes, I do have a fairy piece, but before that I didn't. And so I wrote it down, and enough people asked me for fairies that I drew fairies. But I always make sure it's still something in my own sort of what I want to draw. Like, I'm not gonna draw it if I don't want to, but I try to make it a scene that I still enjoy. So I like frogs, so I put a frog with the fairies. This piece was new last year. This was probably the most difficult piece I've ever made. This started as one big black and white ink drawing, and this is from the Phantom of the Opera. A lot of times my borders are symmetrical and I will flip them over to have the same side and then reversed on the other side. And with this piece, the border is unique all the way around. Here is a piece that's based on my up north cabin. All right, and let me see from here. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm gonna show you a few. Actually, let me see if I have any questions that are like really pressing. Yeah, Stan. My mom does help me at art fairs, yeah. As if you didn't know that. Okay, so from here, I will show you a little bit of process that I don't normally show anyone. So my pieces, so I'm drawing, but I plan my pieces out actually in the computer first. So I do this because I'm not like the kind of artist that just like brings a sketchbook everywhere and sketches what I see and like, oh, I have an idea, I'm gonna jot it down. I'm like, I don't do that. So what I do is I go in Photoshop and I start from there with shapes. And in Photoshop, you can move stuff around. So I can sketch out the dragon, and if I want to move the tail, I can easily do that without having to redraw it every time, because when I was in school, it was like everything was due and I had to do things quickly. So this is like the digital sketch that I then printed out and traced to draw the actual drawing. So this is the pencil drawing that I drew over what I had planned out in Photoshop. I used to draw things in layers and then scan them all in differently. I don't do that anymore. I try to make the actual physical original. That drawing was then transferred to copper. I don't have any physical copper to show today. I don't have any etchings in the work, so I just wanted to include at least one picture of that. This is what a copper plate looks like when I'm etching into it. Here's like a detailed shot of that. And then I'm using an etching needle to actually etch into the copper, which lets me get like a lot of detail compared to, I mean, I still get lots of detail in pen and ink as well, but it's just exponentially more when you're drawing with a needle point. Here's the, I skipped a couple steps, but these are a bunch of the prints I can then pull from the plate that I have transferred the drawing onto, etched. And then let me see if this is a question about this. Very cool, thank you. All right. Oops, okay. So yeah, here's Puff as the etching. And that's the end of that. Okay, so I'll make sure I have time to go into Photoshop later. We're gonna go on a short tour of my studio. And there's some other work I can show you as I walk around my studio. So this is literally just one room, the second bedroom. And so I'm gonna kind of turn around the laptop so that it points at my studio. I'm on the bottom level. They call it the garden level. I call it the like spider level because that's really what they should call it. So my studio is kind of like, a lot of people have their own art up. I do not. I have everyone else's art up in my studio for inspiration. Lots of cards, and this is my computer I do all of my Photoshop work with. This is my big desk that my grandma gave me like years ago. She bought it for me. It still works. I've moved it to like 7 different places where I've lived over like 10 years. This is the area where I keep all of my supplies to like package things or like my shipping supplies. It's not super exciting because I had to put everything in plastic bins, as you see. They're all weather tight because last year I had a water tank burst in the ceiling above my studio, which was really unhelpful. So everything is now in plastic to protect it from any other potential water incidents in here. I set up some of my art. I had the lights on, but I think it's too bright with my actual lights on. So this is my newest piece. This is the 16 by 20 size of print that I was talking about earlier. And a couple of these pieces, it might glare because they're under glass, but I can't take them out. So these are some of my newest etchings. Wow, it's really glary there. They're really tiny. See, the etchings themselves are 2 by 3, and they are in these cool handmade frames from an Etsy store called Signed and Numbered. People always ask me that too. It's like, I don't hand make them, but they are handmade. They're really cool. This is the original drawing that I did for the piece above it. I have a better photo of that I can show in a little bit. This is the original drawing I did for the Phantom of the Opera. This year, I was planning on bringing more of my originals to the shows with me. So if we ever get back on the road, these will be with me on the road. Here's some more of my smaller etchings that are watercolored. So besides the digital coloring, the color for my etchings, because they're printed traditionally, I traditionally color them as well. So I watercolor just with regular watercolors and a really tiny brush. And I hand color these, and these make me really happy because I like to work traditionally, but since I went to school and I learned all of this digital work, I still use the digital too. So I like having a mixture of things in my booth. It gives me lots of things to talk about. People can relate to different things because I meet people who do digital art, or I meet people who do printmaking, and they're like, oh, I've never seen these two things put together before, and so it's really fun. Here's my little acorn. There he is. And so over here is nothing super exciting, but here is my printer. Let me try and get a bigger, there we go. This is my big format, my large format printer I use for all of my digital prints. It's an Epson SureColor P800. I used to have the 600. They're basically the same, it's just this one's bigger. This is the bin that has all of my paper in it. I use Bristol board to draw all my originals on. And then all of my like fine art printing paper is all made by Red River. It's called Red River paper. I used to use Epson brand paper, but I went through a time period where they messed up about like a bunch of my paper and it wasn't coated and it wasn't printing and it was terrible. So I switched to a small company that makes paper themselves. Over here is my other printer I use for cards next to the, someone said the computer was too bright. Sorry about that. All right. And then here, I don't know if you can see it, here are some of my ornaments, which if you didn't see me at a holiday show last year, you probably didn't see them. But these are, I started making them last year and they're really fun because I wanted to find another way to sell my work. And so for the holidays, they're perfect. I use little printed out pieces of paper with my work on them. And then I solder around the edges and I put them in between glass and then I solder around the glass and then the pieces are inside the glass. And then I hang them with little ribbons and they were really fun to do last year. Okay, so with my remaining time, I'm gonna try and do a little bit of a demo in Photoshop. Bear with me, I've never actually done that. So let me get ready for that. Let me check the, oh, yes, Mom, I told you about the ornaments. Okay, we are going to share the screen with Photoshop. Here we go, share. All right, so we are in Photoshop. Now the biggest thing to know about Photoshop is that, wow, this thing is like blocking my layers. Hold on, let me see if I can, there we go, okay. So in Photoshop, yeah, layers are the biggest thing to know about Photoshop. So one piece of mine probably contains over 100 layers. These are layers containing color, these are layers containing line work, these are layers that are like adjusting something. For the whole piece, you can select different sections of it, adjust certain sections only. So I'm gonna show you a few things. Try to keep it kind of basic because it is a little bit confusing. So this is my newest illustration called St. George and the Dragon, which is probably one of my favorite stories. And I did this recently because to me, drawing dragons and horses is like the most comforting thing to do. So over on the right here is where all the layers are. So I clicked to open the illustration and I go down and I'm going to turn off certain layers to kind of show you just where I start. So I'm turning off the color, turning off the color, turning off the color. So now what you see is just the drawing itself that had been scanned, but it's been colored different colors. So we're gonna go specifically into the center here, into the lines. And so when I first scan the piece in, it's all one drawing. And in Photoshop, I go in and I select different sections of the drawing to separate it, which makes it easier for me to color later on. So I go in and I almost like, it's almost as if I'm cutting out like the horse. So here is the layer for the horse. I'm going to turn it off. There it is. So I've already done all this work, but you can see now that, so there's the horse layer. Here's the layer for the dragon. Actually, there's two. So I had to go in and there's like a tool, like a selection tool, and you go in and you literally have to like go in and poke, like, and drag it around every section of what you want to select. Usually I do this with a tablet. Right now on my laptop, I'm just using my trackpad, which is a little bit fumbly. It's like you can't really do this very well with anything that's not a stylus. So that's what the tablet lets me do. It lets me use the stylus, which is a lot easier because you're actually more of like, it's like holding a pencil, so you can go around easier around all the sections. So I'm going to turn off different layers to show you. And So I do this just because when I go in to draw the horse, like I wanted the lines around the horse to be brown. So, and I scan them in with black, like they started off all black. And then like for the halo, you know, there's the one I just turned on and off. That one was going to be gold. So the line work, I colored it to be gold. There's the horse tack. I wanted to separate that too, the horse. So that's pretty cool to see. And so another thing I do, once I separate everything, and like what I've been saying about coloring the lines different colors, so you can select just one layer to color. Where is it? The horse. So, and how I color it is it's been separated from the background. So I select it and then I inverse the selection to select just the lines. And then there's a way to like make a new layer and it drags over just the lines. So if I color it, it won't show up like just a big purple blob like that. If I do this and I select just the lines, I can color just that selection, any color I want. Of course, it would never be this color, but just for the purpose of teaching you a little bit. And then you can go back and undo all of that also. So I do that with all the lines, also in the border. The borders are a little bit more simple usually. I don't usually change the colors that much. It's usually just the center. So I start coloring with just like the big sections of, like I started, after I separated everything in the drawing, I started with coloring just like the horse. So let me find that layer. Let me see. So, okay, so we've switched to the color layers. There's a question, let me see. Oh, thank you. Whoops. Okay, so we switched to the color layers and all of the color layers are underneath the line layers. So I'm coloring almost like a coloring book inside the lines, but the lines are on a layer above the color. So it's easy to not go outside the lines because the lines are essentially in front of the drawing. Now there's so many layers over here, I can't even remember which one was the horse. Oh, the horse had his own group, okay. So I went in and I colored the horse first. And then I keep going kind of as I just go from the big sections on to the smaller ones. So I start with the horse, then I did George, and then I did the dragon. And then so after I kind of just pull colors from, like I'll get a picture of like a medieval scene, and then I brought that into the file, and you can like eyedropper like the color that you want from, oh, like I'm gonna color like parts of the dragon to sort of match the horse, but like make it a little different. So like I think I eyedroppered part of the tail to get like an orange color to kind of embellish on his little spikes on his back and stuff. And then let me zoom out a little bit because we're getting close on time. So let me show you just some of the layer stuff. Hold on. Oh my God, these files get really messy and it's hard to tell exactly what's going on. But one of the coolest things you can do in Photoshop is after you're done, there's all these adjustments you can add. So I added at the top, here's this layer here, levels 1. Levels is, I use levels all the time when I'm photo editing for Etsy shop, for my Etsy shop, or just for any reason. You can go in and you can adjust the, it's like a contrast. There's a specific layer for contrast too, but I use levels just because I think it's just a little more even. And I go in and I usually brighten up my piece because without levels, it's just a little bit bland almost. So I always go in and I kind of move the lightness over and the darkness over just a little bit, just to add something like that. And one last thing that I don't have on here, but I use a lot too, is hue and saturation. And you can go in and you can literally edit specific colors. So it'll select all the colors in the piece and you can like desaturate them or like really, come on buddy, there, you can really saturate the greens. Or if your piece needs just like overall color, like you can bump it up really a lot, which I never do, but sometimes you might need to. Like I was trying to see what color the dragon should be, and I selected just the dragon color and I was able to adjust the color of the dragon. Like you can adjust like the whole color system just to see like interesting options you have, or like, oh, maybe I did like that a little bit greener or something. So basically, Photoshop's really cool, and I use it to color everything. And there you go. So
Vince wanted to know, did you learn all of this in a class? If so, which class?
yes, at CCS, I took, well, they were just called like Digital 1, like Digital Illustration 1, 2, and 3 over the course of like 2 years. And actually what's funny is a lot of the, like, I can teach my method of Photoshop. I can't remember anything else from those classes. So I just remember like what I still use from those classes. But yeah, I had a lot of digital training at CCS.
How long does it take you to finish one piece from the original sketch into Photoshop?
Oh gosh. Well, this piece I just finished, since I didn't have a lot else to do. I went from start to finish in about a week and a half, which is pretty fast. A lot of people think it takes me like weeks and weeks and weeks, but it's like, actually, since I went to school for this, I can do a drawing pretty quickly. Which
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you remind people again where they can purchase where your pieces and all that sort of stuff?
yes. All my digital prints, etchings, framed etchings. There's a couple other extra framed pieces on my Etsy store. Cards. I do have several. Oh, lots of the ornaments are on Etsy right now. So yes, my Etsy store and my website again has